I'm Shauna Rule, GovTrek Program Director with AAUW California. Welcome back, future leaders from across California, to session number 2 of GovTrek. For our guests on the call, as part of AAUW California's ongoing efforts and in collaboration with California branches, we are creating a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive government by launching a new virtual statewide program designed to engage young women across California who are high school juniors and seniors, with the goal of elevating this new generation to pursue careers in public service and elected office. It's been an honor to help develop and deliver this impactful new initiative for young future leaders across California. Today, we have the privilege of introducing our GovTrek participants to 5 trailblazing women changemakers who will share career insights into working in public service leadership at the local, state, and federal levels. Thank you to our distinguished guest speakers for joining us today and for elevating this next generation of women political leaders. Let's get started by introducing our first speaker, who will deliver her Government 101 session. Miranda Drolet is a Deputy District Attorney in Sacramento County. Miranda was born and raised in Sacramento County and graduated from a public school in Elk Grove. She got her bachelor's degree from the University of Southern California with a double major in Spanish with an emphasis on sociolinguistics and law, history, and culture, with a focus on American history from 1700 to 1900. She also had fun taking classes in 3D computer animation. After college, Miranda went straight to Berkeley Law. In law school, Miranda worked across multiple areas, including criminal prosecution, immigration, asylum law, and legal aid, helping clients with public benefits issues and legal name and gender changes. After graduating on Zoom, Miranda began working for the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office and is currently assigned to the Felony Trial Unit. In her spare time, Miranda enjoys baking for friends and coaching for her old high school mock trial team. So let's give a warm welcome to Deputy District Attorney Miranda Drolet.
Hi, everybody. It's kind of weird. I can't see y'all, so I'm just going to speak into the void. Luckily, I am used to teaching on Zoom. I did this in law school. Hi, everyone, and happy Saturday. Like Shauna introduced, my name is Miranda Drolet. I'm a Deputy District Attorney in Sacramento County. What that means is I'm not the elected District Attorney. I am one of the many lawyers here who are criminal prosecutors in the county. I was assigned today to talk about Government 101. So I am going to just kind of give an overview of the more basic parts that build up our government, kind of focusing on the Constitution. The Constitution is the main source document for our entire government, both federally with the entire country and state in California. We have our own state constitution, as well as the federal constitution that was written by the framers back in the 1700s. So the Constitution was written by the framers right after the Revolutionary War, after the Declaration of Independence. We won the war, and then what, right? We had to create a whole system of government. So the framers got together, a group of men from various different states, all the different states, they all got together and had this big hive mind and probably 5,000 arguments until they came up with a constitution that they were ready to present to the states for ratification. That ended up in front of us, and that is what governs every single one of our laws throughout the country and throughout the state. I'll give a brief overview of the Constitution just so we can all understand how it's structured. You might have already been learning this in your American history class or government class, so apologies if it's replicating something you already know, but replication helps memory. So we all begin, of course, with the preamble, which is the "We the People." It has the whole spiel. And that really sets up kind of the mission statement of the Constitution. Why do we have a government? Why do we have a constitution? To form a more perfect union between these new states. We used to be colonies, now we're states. What do we do with that? This is kind of a new idea. How are we going to make this happen? Establish justice throughout the country. Ensure domestic tranquility, how to stop different states from fighting with each other. How to provide a common defense against other countries, against other wars, promote general welfare, have us all live, life, liberty, and happiness. How can we help promote that? And secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. So right there in the beginning, we have, why do we have this government? What are the framers sitting down and thinking, how can we make this good going forth? So it's then structured into 7 different articles. The 3 most important are the ones that actually set up the structure of government, are the ones you are probably focusing on in school. We'll start with Article 1. That sets up the legislature. That is Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. They kind of create and regulate the different laws. The Constitution in Article 1 specifically lists specific powers that Congress gets. They get to regulate commerce. They get to do taxes and handle bankruptcies. They get to loan and borrow money from other countries. Think back to the Revolutionary War, we were borrowing a lot of money from France. That was all kind of on their radar as they were making this constitution. Declare war, govern the militia, create a military, do patents, banks, and then there's this necessary and proper clause, which is kind of innovative when you think about it. It's a bunch of framers realizing, hey, the future's going to happen, and there's going to be things that we currently sitting here today can't anticipate. So the necessary and proper clause kind of gives elasticity to let Congress create and regulate in different ways that are still tied to these main functions of things like commerce, tax, and going back to the preamble. What's most important? Establishing justice, perfect union, domestic tranquility, all that kind of stuff. You got to always keep those priorities in mind when Congress is making laws. Article 1 also sets up the requirements for how to be a representative. Like, I think a representative has to be at least 25, stuff like that. It also has the setup of the bicameral Congress, meaning we have a Senate and a House of Representatives. Their jobs are split. They work together. They're kind of a check and balance within each other. Article 2, that's the executive branch. That's the president, vice president, and all of the administrative bodies. This is something that I didn't really realize even until law school, is how the executive branch was laid out and how things like the FFA, or not FFA, the FAA for flights, not Future Farmers of America, the FAA governing flights, TSA doing security and things like that, the Department of Homeland Security, FBI, all technically fall within the executive branch. It's all technically falling within Article 2. Because Article 2 states that the president is the commander-in-chief of the military. The president has the ability to make treaties with other states with the advice and consent of the Senate, another check and balance, appoint and nominate different people to basically different task forces. Because if the legislature is in charge of creating and regulating, the executive is basically in charge of executing, of administering, of making sure that those laws go forth and are executed properly. Within the executive branch, think of all the things that have to go into play to make these laws work, right? Everything has to be broken down into kind of little committees, like the world's biggest group project. And that all falls within, most of it, within the executive branch. Article 3 is the judicial branch. This is what I am most familiar with because you focus on this a lot in law school. This is the judicial branch. This is the Supreme Court, essentially. The Constitution set up the Supreme Court as supreme for the United States. It's the end-all, be-all court, and then it also gives Congress the power to create appellate courts and courts below that. Throughout time, the Supreme Court has become the court of last review. So basically any other law in the books pretty much can, it's technical and I won't get into it, but it pretty much can get under the Supreme Court's review, and they can determine whether or not it is constitutional. Because this Constitution, ever since it was written, the Constitution is our governing document. It is the end-all be-all of our rights, our protections of the system of government. And it does change. Article 7, we'll jump ahead to that, sets up the process of getting the Constitution amended. Or, sorry, that's 5. 5 is the process to amend. 7 was the process of getting it ratified. That one's boring. 5, the process to amend. That's how we get our amendments. There's 27. The Bill of Rights is the most famous. Bill of Rights is arguably some of the most important. We'll get to the voting ones in a second. But Articles 1 through 10 of the Bill of Rights was pretty much the founders. They sit down, they write the Constitution, they go, wait, we didn't cover everything. Think of everything that England did when we were colonists that made us real mad. They didn't give us the right to speak against the government. They didn't give us the right to practice whatever religion we wanted. They made us host soldiers, their soldiers, in our house and feed them. That's not cool. They were coming into our house and they were just stealing whatever property they wanted. Also not cool, right? So they sat together, thought what really made us mad and how can we protect our citizens from that same behavior going forward? How can we protect ourselves against ourselves, basically? There's that idea that power corrupts, right? We want to create a check and balance on our government now while it's fresh in our mind how we did not like being treated as colonists. Now that we are independent, we have rights, we want to protect them. Let's go 1 through 10, things like the right to a jury trial, the right to an attorney, the right to not incriminate yourself in a criminal proceeding, the right to confront people who are accusing you of crimes, the right to not have the government go searching through your things without proper reason, without a proper warrant or proper procedures, the right to have freedom of speech, the right to a free press, free religion, the right to bear arms. All of these come within the first 10 amendments. Next up, important, number 12, the Electoral College sets up our representative democracy. What's a representative democracy? The opposite of a direct democracy. Direct democracy pretty much only existed in Athens, in Greece, ancient Greece, and it means every single citizen votes on every single thing. One caveat about ancient Athens is that every citizen was only 1/5 of the entire Athenian population. So take that with a grain of salt. 4/5 of the Athenian population was not actually voting, even though the idea is a direct democracy, because they were not considered citizens. But we have a representative democracy because we have 5 zillion people. If every single zillion person on earth in the United States was able to vote on every single thing and had to vote on every single thing, you wouldn't have time to sleep. You wouldn't have time to eat, have a job. It would be insane. So what we have is the Electoral College. We, 18 and up, we vote, and you vote for your representatives, and then your representatives go forward and they represent your interests in Congress, in the House of Representatives, and also the Electoral College. These are separate. The idea of the Senate, the Congress, these are the ones sitting together and arguing with each other and coming up with laws and legislature under Article 1. But then you have the Electoral College. And the Electoral College is how we elect the president. Again, if we had all 5 zillion people voting, that would be rather difficult. So it goes up to kind of one next step. You have a certain amount of electors in the Electoral College. They are tied to the population of your area. And the idea is that they vote in accordance with how your area voted. And it kind of builds on top of itself. It's rather complicated. I do have a limited amount of time, but that's basically the idea. And it's set forth in the 12th Amendment. 13 through 15, the Reconstruction Amendments after the Civil War, giving everyone the right to citizenship regardless of race or ethnicity, giving everyone the right to vote regardless of race or ethnicity. Skipping forward, 19, the women's right to vote. Didn't get that until I believe it was, no, I'm not going to give a year because I'll be wrong, but it was after the 1900s that women had the right to vote in the 19th Amendment. Going forward, the 23rd Amendment, DC, Washington, D.C. could not vote because they were not technically a state until Article 23 or Amendment 23. Amendment 24, we don't like poll taxes. After the Civil War, yeah, everyone got the right to vote, but especially in the South, that was kind of not popular. And so they would create things that you might have heard, like literacy tests and poll taxes, trying to limit who could vote. You had to be able to pay in order to vote, essentially. Society got together, decided that was bad, and we were able to ratify and add the 24th Amendment. You can't have a poll tax in order to vote. 26, lowered the voting age to 18. Before that, I believe it was 21. That was largely in response to protests over the Vietnam War. Young people wanted to be involved in their government. And putting it all together, you've got you all and us. You know, you're all young people coming up on your 18th birthday, getting ready to get become participants, voting participants in your government. Myself and the other speakers here, we are women in various forms of government. I'm not here making laws. I'm here enforcing laws. I'm a criminal prosecutor. I hold people accountable, and I help protect the rights of everyone in our county, is where my jurisdiction is. When we're voting, often you'll hear this idea of a two-party system, and that is something that America has become known for. Places like the United Kingdom have a two-party system that is not as intense as ours. We have multiple political parties. You've heard of a lot of them, I'm sure, in school and on the news. Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Green Party, Independents. There's a lot more smaller ones. And we've always had political parties. If you are, although George Washington did not like them, for the record, he thought that was a bad idea. But if you are all familiar with Hamilton, the musical, you will know that Jefferson was a Democratic Republican and Hamilton was a Federalist, and they didn't like each other. And then whatever Hamilton was didn't like whatever John Adams was, and then they were fighting. It's all these different kind of schools of thought about what are the values for this country. What is the way that our policy should go? What are the priorities that we should have? And it's not my business to try to define which each different political party believes, but people will run under specific political parties often to give a kind of like a signpost to the voters. Hey, I'm going to run under this label, and this kind of gives you an idea of what might be my priorities, what might be my values, what might be my way of going through things, because we all kind of fall within a category. And of course, you're never going to find a hive mind. You're going to find a lot of disagreement among Republicans, among Democrats, among Libertarians on how things should happen. That's why we have voting. That's why we don't have one supreme ruler. We don't have one supreme Republican, one supreme Democrat that duke it out. We have many different representatives within both parties and within some of the smaller parties. And we also have lots of people that identify with those different labels in their own personal life, or identify with no labels, no party preference, or they define independent in a certain way. And that also helps the dialogue. You get lots of ideas together. It's the idea of the United States as a melting pot. We want to get all these ideas into one pot. And historically, that was more limited, of course. It was white men who owned land, and then it was white men, and then it was white men and women, and then we had African American, and then slowly and surely we added until everyone had the right to vote. And that is critical because the entire idea of our government and the Declaration of Independence is that governments derive their powers from the consent of the governed. If we aren't giving our consent, if we aren't having a say in our government, do they really have the power to tell us what to do? It's the same idea as no taxation without representation. I deserve to have a say before you tell me what to do. We aren't England. We don't have a king. We have a representative democracy. We have a Republican democracy. Republican in the sense of a republic, where we vote for representatives who then go forward, not Republican in the political party system. It's confusing. One word, two different meanings.
Thank you,
Voting
Miranda. At this point, we have to open it up for Q&A.
Okay.
I apologize. However, we have time for about one, maybe two questions. So whoever gets their digital hand up first gets to ask Miranda a question.
Ready, go.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Oh, okay, I see it. Mila Rafferty, go ahead.
Hi. My question is, how did you first decide you wanted to get involved with law, specifically being a prosecutor?
I was 16 and I joined mock trial at my high school because I thought it would be fun to play a witness. I had seen them perform for my English class when they were trying to recruit, and I like to act. So I auditioned and I got a role. We had a summer intensive at my high school where we were mostly a brand new team. We had to try it out. And one of my coaches, who was a prosecutor at the time, he's now retired, hauled me aside and said, "You're going to play an attorney on this competition." And I said, "I don't have time for that. That sounds really hard. I just wanted to act." And he said, "Ask me if I was asking, like you're going to do it." I ended up loving it. It is what stuck with me. I played an attorney on both sides in high school, both prosecution and defense. But prosecution is what spoke to me as far as both the challenge of putting things, little pieces in a puzzle, and also in being able to represent the community and the rights of victims. And that is something that I tried out throughout law school, throughout college, by doing different internships. And it's something that has continued to speak to me and something I'm really happy to be doing now.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Let's go for one more question from Julia Dang.
I'm sorry, you were talking about the first three articles in the Constitution about the respective powers of the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches. Are there? Could you give an example of like current disputes over what falls into specific jurisdictions?
I don't know of any disputes that come to mind. There is a lot of gray area, especially between Congress and between the legislative and the executive branch. There's a lot of bleed over. First of all, because there's supposed to be. A lot of times, the president has the power to act with the advice and consent of the legislature. So they have to blend together. With the rise in administrative bodies, all the different agencies, federal agencies that you'll see are under the executive branch. But they sure do a lot of things that feel like laws and that affect us like laws that would come from the legislature. Some kind of another bleed over. We haven't really formally declared a war since well before the Vietnam War. I don't know the exact year, with Congress, because the president has not, Congress has not formally gotten together and voted and declared war, but we have obviously had what we would call a war. We have had wars, we have had incidents that involve violence across different countries and disputes. There's a lot of bleed over. I don't know of anything that I would specifically call a controversy, though I'm sure people who are more familiar with this kind of fight would have good examples for you. But I'm definitely aware of a lot of bleed over in that issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So we do have one more question, but no time for it, Anaya.
Oh, no.
So if you can send your question in the chat, we will be happy to forward it to Miranda, and perhaps she has the time to respond by email. Wonderful, and thank you so much, Miranda, for joining GovTrek today.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
We are honored. Let me turn my camera back on here. We are honored to introduce our next set of speakers who will deliver a combined session. The San Diego County District Attorney Summer Stephan and former Sacramento County District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert. First, I'll give a formal introduction to DA Summer Stephan, and we'll hand the floor to her. As a prosecutor, San Diego County District Attorney Summer Stephan has been delivering justice for victims of crime in San Diego County for nearly 3 decades. She is recognized as a national leader in the fight against human trafficking. As the county's top law enforcement official, she leads an office of about 1,000 employees who pursue fair and equal justice and keep San Diego one of the safest urban counties in the U.S. She's leading efforts to address the issue of homeless individuals and those with mental health challenges who come into contact with the criminal justice system. Summer is known for her balanced approach to public safety, which includes providing second chances to low-level offenders while still protecting public safety and supporting victims of crime. Please welcome District Attorney Summer Stephan.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you, the American Association of University Women. Thank you for providing this forum to talk to the future of our state and our nation. And it's all of you on the line, the high school students. I am so encouraged, I can tell you, with what I'm seeing. And your presence is a part of it. I think the future is bright because you all have gotten an extra gene of caring about our community, caring about our nation, caring about the world around us. And that is what has driven me. So thank you, President Gabe, for inviting me. As was said, I'm the elected district attorney for San Diego County. I was elected in 2018, and I just entered my second term. I was re-elected in 2022. So that's very exciting and really humbling to think that this second largest county, which is my county in the state of California, where I serve 3.3 million people, has put their confidence in me to make sure that where their safety is concerned, that I am making the right decisions for them, their families, and their neighbors. So I'm going to shrink my time a little bit so that we can catch up a bit. But as everybody knows about me, and you should know, you can just find me on SanDiegoDA.com, reach out with any question, and I'd be happy to get back to you and try to help you in your career. But my career track started when I was 12 years old. I was reading a National Geographic, which at that time was not online, so it's all paper. And I saw an image, and if you've ever looked at the National Geographic, you would see that it has amazing images that capture pain, suffering, joy. Anything that you want to capture is there. And I saw an image of girls in Socotra, an area of North Africa, that looked like they're my age, but there was a big difference between us, not in the way of our humanity, but in the way that their eyes looked like they felt fear, and their soul felt like it wasn't there, like it had been ripped out by violence, sexual abuse, and everything else that was happening to those girls. At that moment, I marched into my parents' living room and I said, I want to fly over there and help these girls. I don't understand why, but they said no, because I was 12. But I decided at that moment that would be my life's passion. I did not know how I would get there, but I found that going to UC Davis, getting a psychology degree, then going to law school and becoming a prosecutor, where you use the law as a sword and a shield to protect the most vulnerable, was the best way for me to help girls, women, and everybody who has that look of terror, of feeling unsafe, to return that dignity, that safety to them. And over the years, I did everything under the sun, like the amazing prosecutor you heard before me. And then I reached a crossroad. And that crossroad was whether I was going to step up, make myself completely vulnerable by running for the top position. I had spent 28 years building a career, but now would I enter local politics and become the person, not in the courtroom arena, but in the arena of politics, to become elected as the top prosecutor, the district attorney for my region. And despite the terror I felt, because I never considered myself a politician, but I thought that I had a calling, and that to continue that journey, to fulfill my calling and that passion to protect people and make sure they're safe and they have fairness and dignity, I needed to run. And that's what I did. I love it. I think all politics are local. So being elected to a local position, a local DA's office, serving 3.3 million people, so it's a lot of people, bigger than 21 states, but still really being able to feel the pulse of my community locally. So I'm going to just tell you that if there's something that terrifies you, that you don't want to do because you're afraid, just do it. Find the way to use your courage to do what you're passionate about. Don't let anybody make you believe that we don't feel the terror, because I feel it every day, but it's going through that, using courage and your passion to walk through the fear of putting yourself out there to run for office, to be part of the fabric of democracy. So passion, perseverance, I cannot tell you how many no's I got, how many you don't fit, you're not gonna do it, daughter of immigrants, all of that, but you just keep going, you walk through it. No substitute for hard work, and honesty and integrity. The reason I'm gonna bring in the hard work is because you all are in a generation where you see instant fame and people arriving, and it appears to you like they arrived to their goals and dreams overnight. But there is still absolutely no substitute for hard work, for the journey, for the grind, because it prepares you to keep rising and serving and doing better. So I'm going to stop here and look forward to questions and look forward to hearing my good friend and colleague, the recently retired DA from Sacramento County.
Thank you so much, DA Stephan. That was very, very inspiring, your career story. Next, I'd like to introduce former Sacramento County District Attorney Anne-Marie Schubert, and then we'll circle back and open it up for questions from both of you. Former Sacramento County District Attorney Anne-Marie Schubert is a nationally recognized public safety leader, having spent 32 years as a career prosecutor and elected district attorney. Anne-Marie is a pioneer in the use of forensic investigative genetic genealogy and is known for being a cold case prosecutor who is passionate about forensic DNA and an advocate for victims of sexual assault, child abuse, murder, and domestic violence. Her competence in the courtroom has earned her respect of colleagues across the criminal justice system. Anne-Marie Schubert is currently the founder and president of Schubert Strategies, a Sacramento-based firm specializing in a wide variety of consultation services. Please welcome former District Attorney Anne-Marie Schubert.
Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody for letting me come on and talk here, and to AAUW. Give a shout out to my friend Tracy Ramadini, who's an amazing teacher up here in Northern California. So I want to kind of just focus in on similar stuff that DA Stephan said, and why did we choose this profession? I'm going to start with a story that probably is not the best light on myself, but I tell people this, and it's true, is that I went to law school really for the wrong reasons. I did my undergraduate at a college up in Northern California, St. Mary's, and I really had no clue on what I wanted to do. And so I figured, okay, well, there's two tracks to having a decent job. I could go down the track of trying to be a doctor. I didn't do well with looking at blood or any of that kind of stuff, or I could try to be a lawyer. And I just thought, okay, I'll go to law school. And I had no concept of the criminal justice system at all. I just figured I was going to go to school, get out, and do whatever. And halfway through law school, I interned. I went to school in San Francisco, University of San Francisco, and I interned for a judge. Her name was Lucy McCabe. She was an extraordinary judge. She was kind of a hippie. I loved her, and she was assigned to the criminal courts. And I had my first exposure to criminal law, and I fell in love with this concept of public safety and standing up for justice and standing up for victims and trying to do right by the community. And quite frankly, I never looked back. I became a prosecutor in 1990, and very similar probably path that Summer has. Grew up in the trenches. I spent probably the majority of my professional career prosecuting violent crimes, rapes, child abuse, domestic violence, homicide cases. And as Shauna mentioned, my passion in life has and always will be forensic DNA, because I do believe it is the greatest tool ever to find the truth, no matter where it leads us. Probably the most high-profile cases you all might remember is the Golden State Killer, which was an extraordinary work by law enforcement to solve a massive serial killing and serial rape case out of all over California. But I am just as equally honored to be part of an exoneration of a man who was innocent, convicted out of another county and spent 15 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. So the power of that tool is extraordinary. My path is probably somewhat similar to Summer in the sense of being elected. I too never in my life have, nor do I still consider myself ever a politician. I love what I do. I loved what I do. It's hard to believe I'm not the DA anymore, but that's okay. I'm very comfortable in my role now. But with that being said, I've always believed that there's more to being a prosecutor than getting a conviction. That the key to public safety is it's not just about prosecution, it's about prevention. And as I often used to say, it's about innovation. So as prosecutors, our core responsibility is to go into a courtroom to address crime. If somebody commits a crime, our responsibility is to handle that individual case. And that's something that prosecutor will always do. And as Summer mentioned, there's many, many things that we have done, particularly, I would say, in the last 10 years to try to find alternatives to incarceration, whether it's, collaborative courts like mental health courts or veteran courts or courts that deal with victims of human trafficking, those kinds of things. But we are also always going to be there when we're talking about violent crime, because violent crime has consequences and the human toll of that crime is lifelong for families on both sides of the aisle. So I look at this lens of the prosecutor as not just being in a courtroom, but it's critical to being in the community. I mean, you've got to be able to stand with your community. You may not always agree because we all have our defined roles, but you cannot expect our communities to be healthier, to be safer, to be more vibrant without partnering with them. And that's why prosecutors reach across the aisles. We work with what we call our stakeholders. And sometimes that means that we're working on programs in the community. It could be something to reduce bullying, cyberbullying through the internet. It could be out there talking to kids in schools about how to protect themselves against those types of challenges that we see with social media. We have many other programs that we've tried to do here in Sacramento to work with our community. We have programs where we educate our immigrant community on their rights so that they understand their rights. But all in all, what I think is the most important thing is that we have to always be willing as public servants to realize that we don't live in silos, that we must always look beyond our core function, because if we can all work together, whatever that profession is, it could be the public defender's office, it could be probation, it could be law enforcement, it could be the courts, it could be our community members, that if we're willing to stand together and we're willing to be innovative and persistent, then we can start to solve some of the problems of the human race. I'll leave you with this, and I hope this is what my guiding light has always been. I have no doubt in my mind that the key to success in life is based on being authentic to who you are and finding your passion. Because if you can do those two things, you will be successful. It may not be defined by money, but it will be successful. And lastly, I'll just leave you with a quote, which I believe in my heart. The most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire. And if you can find the fire in your soul, you're going to be the most powerful women that face California in the future. And I am just super proud of you all to be here. And clearly this tells me that you all have an intention to serve our communities well. So thank you so much to AAUW, and I appreciate and look forward to questions.
Thank you, DAs Schubert and Steffen, for your inspiring career stories. At this point, we'd like to open it up for Q&A from our students. We have time for about 2 or 3 questions. I see one from Sydney. Go ahead, Sydney.
Hi there. First off, you guys are just incredible. My question really goes out to either one of you. As a young woman who's really interested in law and forensics even, what would you say are like the number one like skills or attributes or characteristics that you often find yourself calling upon in your careers?
I mean, I think it's really about somebody who is curious and really engaged. That's what I look for. It's like that somebody's present in the world, like engaged with their heart and their soul, and they're willing to learn. I also look for humility for me. You know, I'm engaged in a lot of hiring, and I find that a lot of people that look like they have big egos, you know, are not necessarily putting in the work, and they're not looking at themselves with the eye to improve. So I look for a humble spirit, but one that is very hardworking and looking to continue to move forward.
Thank you.
I just would echo what Summer said. I think, you know, one of the things I've learned over the last 32 years is that treating everybody with dignity and respect is critical. It doesn't matter if it's the defendant who's charged with whatever crime he's charged with. It doesn't matter if it's the person on the other side. But where we gain our reputations is based on treating others with dignity and respect. I really believe that in my heart.
Thank you, ladies. Anaya, it looks like you have a question as well.
Hello, everyone. Could you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Anaí Nava Flores, and I am from the Bay Area. And my question for you all today is, as a woman of color passionate about social justice in our government and in our community, what can we do as young people to gain knowledge and experience and further educate ourselves in our community to be an active participant in civic engagement and in our government?
What a fantastic question. And the question is perfect because our system is built on the criminal justice system, on having ethical prosecutors and having ethical defense attorneys. Both sides are needed, but for whatever reason, sometimes when people are passionate about social justice, they seem to initially gravitate towards becoming defense attorneys. But the thing about it is that's very noble and important, but social justice also involves breaking generational cycles of violence. It involves protecting children from trauma, from living in neighborhoods that are besieged by violence and crime, so they can grow up and reach their highest potential. So we find the best way for you to engage, my best advice for you is internships, where you're open-minded and you do internships in both fields, defense, prosecution, law enforcement, with an open mind to see where the best fit is for your growth journey in serving.
I 100% agree with Summer. I would also just maybe, you know, a lot of DA's offices have like job shadow days where they partner and you can go for a day and you can work, you know, spend a day with public defenders, judges, probation officers, you know. And then the other thing is go down to the courthouse and watch some proceedings, see what it's like for the real life to unfold in a criminal courthouse, because it does take a toll, but I think it's also can open the eyes to all the different players in the system and how you can best put your passion forth in what role that would be in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. Let's take one more question from Zoe. Zoe, sorry.
Hi, my name is Zoe, and the one question I wanted to ask kind of for both of you is when you decided to pursue this career, what was the one big thing that you wanted to accomplish? And also what kind of kept you going and like to want to keep staying in this career and keep pursuing like the things that you wanted to do?
Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Well, thanks for the question, Zoe. I mean, I think, like I said at the beginning, I really didn't have a clue. But then once I realized that this justice system was filled with human tragedies, I just really was drawn to it. And I think maybe my nature is to be a fixer. I just want to help people, and it doesn't necessarily always mean it's just victims. It's people in the system that need help. And so then once I got into it, first of all, there's a certain adrenaline rush to being in a courtroom that no one can really explain unless you're there. It's you have to think on your feet. You got to know the law. You got to start to learn other areas of expertise you'd never think about: psychology, medicine, all different things depending on the facts of the case. And so I found myself mentally addicted in a way to this challenge, in a way that I felt like, okay. But then as I progressed, I fell in love with policy work. I fell in love with helping the community in different kinds of ways than in the courtroom. And so to me, you just kind of pivot as you go up through the system, and Summer and I both became electeds. You then pivot to being an advocate in other ways, not just in a courtroom.
Zoe, for me, and like I said, I was kind of blessed in that I knew what I needed to do to have a satisfactory life. And it's about having people feel safe and not have this terror in their eyes. And for like our human trafficking victims, where they feel like a slice of pizza being sold day and night. So so I reached that. Once I reached that, after being turned down 3 times or maybe even more, because I didn't really fit at the time, it was very much a male organization, the district attorney's office. Over time, that has changed. 50% of our prosecutors are women. So I'm proud to have been part of that change and kind of kicking those doors a little bit. But once I got in, there were a lot of challenges, but my love, kind of keeping my eye on the ball, that I'm not going to let other people deter me from this path that I'm on. So sometimes I didn't get the assignments I wanted, but I kept going. It was like walking forward, forward movement. Sometimes things happened where you felt like, is this really for me, especially after being turned down several times. But you have to kind of check yourself and see, like, how do you feel? Not always letting others make the decisions for you. With women and girls especially, you find that people apply for like promotions, for all of that. And the women feel like they need a lot more qualifications to step up and apply for those promotions, while the men often feel like after the first year they can do anything, So I think it's really important, and that's why I'm excited about being with all of you, is to encourage each other and build a support system. And like Anne Marie and I had a support system as electeds, building a support system where you are never competing with anyone else. You are competing with your best self constantly, to be your best self. So yeah, I stayed in it, one, because I didn't want anyone pushing me out of it. So I was a little stubborn, but I also just loved it. When you say you love something, it doesn't mean there isn't hard moments and moments where you have regrets, but it just means that the joy overwhelms the sorrow.
All right. Thank you both so much.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, DAs Stefan and Schubert, for joining GovTrek today. And for the girls on the call, please reach out to these legislators if you have any further questions.
Thank you.
We are honored to introduce our next speaker. We are honored to introduce our next speaker, California's 34th State Treasurer, Fiona Ma. She was elected on November 6, 2018, with more votes than any other candidate for treasurer in the state's history. She is the first woman of color and the first woman certified public accountant elected to this position. Prior to being elected the treasurer, she was an elected member of the California Board of Equalization from 2014 to 2018 and worked to protect the rights of taxpayers while ensuring California collected its fair share of tax revenues. Treasurer Ma was a member of the State Assembly from 2006 to 2012, serving as a speaker pro tempore from 2010 to 2012. Prior to serving as Speaker pro tempore, she was Assembly Majority Whip and worked across the aisle during a state budget crisis to pass groundbreaking legislation that protected public education and the environment while also expanding access to healthcare. As an Assembly member, she authored 60 bills that were signed into law by 2 different governors. Please welcome a proven leader and our state's primary banker, California State Treasurer Fiona Ma.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me here today. Can you hear me okay, Shauna? Great.
Yes, yes.
So it's an honor to be here to talk to all of you. And I got a chance to listen to Anne Marie and Summer's remarks, and I'm going to kind of play on those a little bit as well. Growing up, my parents wanted us to be one of the lead professions, a lawyer, engineer, accountant, or a doctor. I was not really good at reading those court cases, so I could not be a lawyer. I also do not do well with blood and pain, like Anne Marie. So being a doctor was out of the question. My dad was an engineer. I had no idea what he did. And so that left accounting since I was pretty good at math. And so my parents decided that I should be an accountant. So I went to school, undergraduate, in Rochester, New York, and enrolled in a accounting specific CPA curriculum. Part of my studies was a paid internship, 2 paid internships, which I did in the Manhattan office of Ernst & Whinney. And I would highly suggest if you could get into a program with paid internships. Number one, they're going to pay for your experience. And number two, if those companies are a good fit, you're probably going to be at the top of the list to get hired. And as you all know, everything is highly competitive these days. And so taking advantage of internships, like Summer said, I think is definitely a key to moving ahead. So after college, I moved from New York to San Francisco because my parents had relocated, decided to stay with that same Big 8 accounting firm, but doing real estate taxation. I worked there for 5 years and then quit at the age of 28 because there were no women or people of color in leadership. And I started my own practice. I became president of the Asian Business Association, where my job was now to lobby for more business opportunities, contracting opportunities for women and minority small businesses. And that was the first time I ever got involved in public service. My parents were both born in China. China is a communist country. You don't get involved in politics. They never encouraged me to get involved in student body councils. And so all of a sudden, at the age of 28 years old, my eyes were wide open that these elected officials, these people in politics, they're the ones that are making the important decisions, whether it's about money or policy. And I started to get more and more interested. I got a part-time job with Senator John Burton, where I worked for him for 2.5 days. I got involved in all sorts of women's clubs, Democratic clubs. I even started my own club called the West Side Chinese Democratic Club. I did a lot of pro bono work for candidates who were running for office because it cost money to pay bookkeepers and attorneys and CPAs. And a lot of people who are running for office don't necessarily have that means. And so I did a lot of pro bono filings for them. And it took 8 years before I was able to run for office, mostly because my parents really objected me leaving the accounting world to run for office, because anyone can run for office. You don't need a degree. You don't even need a GED. And so my parents did not really think that that was an honorable profession for me. But, my parents wanted me to go get my MBA. So I got my MBA. Then they wanted me to get married. My brother was waiting to get married, so I got married. And finally, at the age of 36 years old, I ran for the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. I agree, and I would agree, that if you're going to run for office, don't run for Congress as your first office. If you want to be president, well, you got to start someplace. Start at the local level, build your resume. Because if you don't understand what your local government, your local people at the local level, your constituents really want, well, you're not going to be successful as you move up. And government Politics is all about people. You need to be able to connect with people. You need to want to help people, return people's phone calls, show up. If that is not your personality, if you are not an extrovert, where you get exhausted when you see people and you're really dying to go home every day and just, read a book, relax, this business is probably not for you. I also agree with Anne-Marie Schubert that you cannot be defined by money. In politics, in public service, if you care about money, like you want a fancy house, you want nice cars, you want to eat at fancy restaurants, take vacations at five-star hotels, this business is not for you. We work for government because, number one, we care about people and helping people every day. Number two, it is not a 24/7 type of job. Working for government is usually a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday job with no weekends. And ladies, as you are, moving forward, getting older, maybe having kids, you will see that you cannot do it all. You cannot have it all. And so your time is going to be compromised all the time, whether you have a spouse, whether you have kids, whether you have a dad, like I have an 88-year-old dad that I live with. It is not all about you. And so you have to think about that as you move forward. So I know some people start in government and then they say, oh, well, we're not making enough money. We're going to go to the private sector. Well, you try it in the private sector for a while and they work you pretty hard, right? They're not going to pay you money to do less work. So money is directly correlated to how many hours you are going to work. And so once women have a chance to experience both the public and the private, a lot of them do come back to the public sector. For the healthcare, we get amazing healthcare. And if you work 10 to 20 years in government, after 20 years, you can get your healthcare paid for life. And it may not mean anything to you at your age right now as seniors in high school, but as you get older, you will start understanding how having amazing healthcare that is reliable, that is affordable, starts to become a priority in your life. And if you live with parents or grandparents and you see how difficult it is if they have an unexpected fall or an accident or some disease, you will see that as you get older, you start focusing on some of the things, the quality of life versus just the money. So on the Board of Supervisors, I spent most of my time in the community, cleaning up the neighborhood, putting in stop signs, building, playgrounds, trying to improve my neighborhood corridors. And then after 4 years, I had the opportunity to run for the state assembly, which is a policy job. And as we talked about policy, Anne-Marie talked a little bit about that, how, this justice system has human tragedies. And I will tell you, my last 2 bills signed by Governor Brown gave a second chance to women who were convicted of life without parole. When you are convicted of life without parole, that means you basically spend the rest of your life in jail. But there is a certain population, women who are convicted of domestic violence for protecting themselves against their husband or their boyfriends in self-defense. Back then, 40 years ago, they didn't have the battered women's syndrome. And so these women, did you commit the crime? Yes or no? If you said yes, they're like, see you later. We're never going to see you again. And now over 100 women are out of jail and are trying to live the best life that they can. And that's never happened before. No other state has passed these type of laws. And so as a policymaker, you can actually change the course of human beings, right? Direct the money, the budget money to causes that you care about. And when women run for office, we usually run because we have a cause or a passion that we want to run. We don't run because we want to advance our business or see our name in lights or make more money after a race. It's really because there is a problem in our lives that we want to fix. Then I ran for the State Board of Equalization, which is a tax board. And so by this time, my parents are like, okay, it's getting closer to what you're trained to do. We were the only elected tax board. I spent 4 years there, and then I ran for state treasurer in 2018. And I tell people that my life has come full circle after 20 years, where my parents really wanted me to be in accounting and finance and business. Now, after 20 years, all of those skills, my educational background, my public and my private sector experience has really led me to this job as the treasurer of the fourth largest economy, the banker. And I'm very, very comfortable in this role. But in order to continue to stay in this type of business, you have to run for office. And running for office is not for everyone, right? It is competition. I consider myself a very competitive athlete growing up, where I loved to compete. I like to win, and the same type of fire that you have in your belly also has to be present if you want to run for office. And so I am here to mentor anyone who is thinking about it. I also agree that you should intern. Lots of races coming up in 2024. So go into an office, give whatever you can, walk a precinct, answer phones. Campaigns will take you. That is what makes up a lot of our, a lot of our volunteer efforts. And so, I'm going to put my chat in my email and my cell phone in the chat. If you want to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to mentor you. So I guess I'll open it up for any questions you may have.
Oh, thank you, Treasurer Ma. That was so inspiring. We do have time for about 2 or 3 questions. Whoever gets their digital hand up first gets to ask Treasurer Ma a question. Treasurer. Zoe King, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Zoe King. I'm from Sacramento, California. And I was wondering, as a woman of color, how do you feel it is having people take you seriously in your field and having people take you seriously in your career?
Yeah, I feel people underestimate me all the time, even today, right? As the treasurer, 4 elected positions, haven't lost in 20 years. I have a bachelor's, a master's, and an MBA, and I'm a certified public accountant. People still think I'm stupid sometimes. And that's just, part of this job. The people that don't value you or take you seriously, don't deal with them. I don't need to deal with people that are jerks anymore. So surround yourself with, good, positive people. Try to be humble, like Summer said, inspire, mentor, try to bring up the next generation. But we, as women, people of color, are always going to face discrimination. And until we get more people into positions of power, the governor, the legislature, presidents and CEOs of the healthcare, Hollywood, banking, legal professions, we're not going to see equity and fairness. So, we just have to do what we have to do, put your best foot forward. But there's always going to be people that are going to try to pull you down and, make you feel less than you are. But again, find good mentors, surround yourself with positive people in your life. I know that Summer talked about like some of the people that she hangs around with, and I have great women friends. We are all successful in our own rights. Most of us came from nothing, and we find, sisterhood and support by just being there for each other, right? Encouraging each other, showing up for each other. And that's the way we're going to move our, our sisterhood up, is by showing and proving and, having that support for one another.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Zoe. Sydney, it looks like you have a question.
I do. Well, I guess first, it's just amazing how passionate you seem, and it really caught my attention. And the things you were saying about, mentorship and making a name for yourself and getting involved really caught my attention as well. So what would you say is like the best ways that as a young woman interested in these things that I can get involved in maybe finding a good mentorship and things like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of women, I've been doing this for a long time now. A lot of women will just say, just ask me, reach out to me. A lot of times you may say, oh, that's a Supreme Court Justice, Tani, she won't have time for me, or I'm intimidated and she won't answer. But you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how many women would be like, great, when can you come shadow me? Come intern, help me do this. And in government, we do have student assistant positions. So when you go to college and you have some time, you can apply, especially those in Sacramento. We will hire you part-time, but pay you. And after, if you like what you're doing, a lot of times we will hire our student assistants because they understand our culture. They're a good fit with the organization. People really start to like the student assistants, but that is an option for you. So I would encourage you to do whatever you can to get your foot in the door, ask questions, seek people out, and don't take no for an answer.
Thank you so much.
Shauna, you're muted.
Thank you. Thanks, Sydney. We have time for one more quick question. Anaya?
Hello, everyone. It's actually pronounced Anaí Nava Flores, but thank you. Mrs. Ma, thank you for sharing your career and educational journey with us. You are truly so powerful and so inspiring to us all. And my question for you today is, I'm here from the Bay Area, East Bay Area, and I'm also very passionate about both STEM and in government. So I'd really like your input and advice as women of color. What is some advice that you would give for us all to continue the work that we're doing, to stay persistent, to stay motivated? In what ways can we find that encouragement to stay on track? And how can we reach out to people and continue those networking connections?
Yeah, I mean, look for those opportunities because there are so many groups like nonprofits that are offering training seminars, leadership, coaching, mentorship. Take advantage of all of that. I know you're all busy, doing SAT prep and all of your extracurricular, but I do believe when you step out of your comfort zone, right? Stop hanging out with your friends all the time. Go do something different. Ask an adult, hey, I may be interested in being, an accountant or a banker or a lawyer. Like, what can I do that would inspire me? And then we start inviting you to things. My assistant knows I am busy every single day and I get invited to all these type of events. And if I have people that are interested in joining with me, I bring them along, right? This is, a day in my life, and some people will really like it and they'll be like, wow, this is exciting. Every day is different. You're meeting so many people, doing so many cool things. And some people will be like, this is exhausting. I cannot keep up with your pace. Like, I'm just can't talk to people all day long. But, you just have to find what suits your personality, right? If you're into listening to people, arguments, maybe you should be a judge, right? I can't sit in a chair for 8 hours at a time. That's just not my personality. So I could never be a judge. So you have to also figure out what you like, your personality, what you see is a possibility for yourself. And like Anne Marie, she said, hey, she didn't really think that she wanted to really do this, but then something caught her eye. And because she had the background, she was there and available at the right time, at the right place to put all of the things she learned into practice, into something that she was passionate about. So your parents know you better than you know yourself. And I'm sure they're guiding you in certain directions. And you may say, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be an accountant. I want to go to international business, travel the world. Well, they're recommending you to be an accountant because you're probably good at math. So listen to your parents. Eventually, hopefully everything comes full circle, like I said, and the things that you thought you didn't want to do, didn't like to do in college, like why did I major in this, will make sense at some point, because, when you're comfortable doing something a lot, that comfort does give you strength. Like for me, running for treasurer as a CPA gave me strength because I feel comfortable running for that. When I ran for the Board of Supervisors, that was not my strength. So it took a while to get used to it and to feel comfortable. But then once I did that for 4 years, I felt more comfortable running for the state assembly, even though I'm not a policy person. I'm not a lawyer. Has nothing to do with accounting, but I found my passion topics, whether it's human trafficking or protecting babies from toxic chemicals or, leveling the playing field. I was able to put my passions into policy that had nothing to do with accounting. And then when I ran for the tax board, I felt more comfortable. That's what I did for a living. And then now as treasurer, this job is kind of easy compared to my first 2 jobs.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Treasurer Ma, for joining GovTrek today. We need to move to our next speaker, and I see that Julia Dang's hand is up. So Julia, please feel free to reach out to the treasurer. She put her contact information in the chat.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. We are honored to introduce our next speaker, Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, who serves as a U.S. representative from California's 16th Congressional District. Like the Silicon Valley region she represents, Congresswoman Eshoo exemplifies innovation. She's creative, productive, a problem solver, and a consensus builder. The San Jose Mercury News named her one of the 10 most powerful women in Silicon Valley because she sits on committees that oversee the internet and the biotech areas, which are vital to the Valley's interests. For over 2 decades in Congress, Rep. Eshoo has defended consumers, promoted American competitiveness and innovation, fought for access to health care for families and children, and protected the environment, and encouraged the development of clean energy technology. Please welcome Congresswoman Eshoo. Thank you for joining us today, Congresswoman.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be with you. And Shauna, thank you for your very generous introduction. And I want to thank Nancy Belofsky for inviting me to be with all of you today. AAUW has been in the forefront of encouraging women to seek elected office. And GovTrek is really a very exciting initiative to motivate high school students. So I'm thrilled to be with you. I think it's an honor, and I hope what I share with you will be a source of inspiration to everyone that's a part of this today. Obviously, I'm much older than everyone, and I would say that my first bit of excitement about politics was in 1960 when John Kennedy ran for president. I was born and raised in Connecticut. The presidents that I was aware of were all old men, and John Kennedy wasn't. He was young. He was exciting. It was exciting to me to see a young person that I could relate to running for the presidency. And so I was a senior in high school. I decided that I needed to do something to help elect him. And so I organized high school students to help elect John Kennedy as president. Now, at that time, you had to be 21 years old to vote, but there wasn't anything that would stop me from organizing. So I did that, and when election night rolled around, I honestly believed that I had helped put John Kennedy over the top. I had no idea or intention of ever running for office. And I think that it's very important for each one of you to understand how powerful role models are. When I look back, the reason that, I didn't see any opportunity for myself was because I didn't see any women in public office. So role models are really very, very powerful. Moving forward, some years later, I was encouraged to run for to have a seat in the local Democratic Party, and it was the registrar of voters that came and talked to me. My husband knew him. He was a lawyer in our county. And so he came to meet with me. I had no idea why he wanted to meet with me. But he is in charge of voter registration. And he needed, as he put it in words, he wanted individuals that he thought could be effective in terms of registering more people to vote. And of course, that's the work of the local Republican Party and the Democratic Party. So he had brought papers with him for me to fill out. I really didn't know what I was getting into, but I said that I would do it. And lo and behold, I was elected to be a member of the San Mateo County Democratic County Committee. And it was when I was a member that I met, at that time, the Speaker of the California Legislature, Leo McCarthy. And I so looked up to him and respected him because he was a man of enormous integrity. And in the early 80s, I was elected the chair of the Democratic Party in San Mateo County, the first woman in the history of the party to be elected chair. And that taught me a lot about politics. Everything wasn't positive, but it was an introduction to the real politics in the county. So Leo McCarthy hired me to be his chief of staff in his assembly district. And I loved that work. It was not only policy, but it was, a layer of politics as well. But Leo really thought that I should be, that my role in all of this was not working for someone else, but to be elected to public office myself. And there was an opening on the Board of Supervisors in 1982. One of the members was stepping down because of his ill health. And Leo encouraged me. I wanted to stay working for him. He said, no, you should run for office. And I did, and was elected in 1982 to the Board of Supervisors. I loved that work. I served on the board for 10 years. Counties and boards of supervisors in California are very powerful. They aren't in all states, but in California, counties are very powerful because we implement all the state and federal laws. So I was immersed in policy, and I did a great deal to make sure that everyone in San Mateo County was covered, that they would have access to health care. I chaired our hospital board of directors. I loved every moment that I was on the Board of Supervisors, and it really was the basis for my experience to run for Congress, which I did in 1988. I didn't make it, and I didn't have any regrets about running, because these experiences, whether they are successful or not, you learn. And what you learn, no one can ever take away from you. So as I said, I served on the board for 10 years. We had term limits, which I was glad about. And I was already thinking on the heels of my losing that election, what I was going to do in the private sector following my service there. In 1992, the man that beat me decided to run for the Senate, and I was pretty much reluctant to run again. I had been there, I had done that. It was women who had done so much on behalf of my candidacy in 1988 that said it's a new district because of redistricting. We want you to run again, and we will be there with you. Were it not for women and their organizations, I would say that I would not have done it. Plus, I then knew how hard it was because I'd already done it. Anyway, I ran in 1992 and was elected. It was quite a year because it was dubbed the year of the woman. Maybe they just thought it was going to be that year, but there were 4 newly elected female senators, 23 other newly elected congresswomen to the Congress. And as I said, it was called the Year of the Woman. And I was the first woman in the history of our country to be elected to Congress from the congressional district, and the first Democrat since our country was founded to be elected from this congressional district. Today, there are 153 women that serve in the Congress, 23 in the Senate, 128 serving in the House. This is the highest number of women serving in Congress in history. And yet, when you run the numbers about women, we're not even close to what the population of women is in our country. So we still have miles to go and places to see. Since I was first elected, my district has changed. So have the politics in Washington. But I would say that my dedication to public service remains steadfast. We have huge challenges in our country. Every chapter of history, there have been challenges. But I always believe that challenges are opportunities. And so the policy work to advance and build on what we have accomplished is so important. So what's my life like every week? I commute across the country every single week, and I have for 3 decades. Washington, D.C. is on the other side of the country. That's where I do my legislative work. But I commute home to be with my constituents in my congressional district. And I think that you really don't have your finger on the pulse of where people are, their hopes, their aspirations, what's working, what isn't working. You have to be with your constituents. And then my time in Washington, D.C. is it's a very, very full schedule. Besides the votes that are scheduled on the floor of the House, I have a great deal of committee work to do. And if you'd like to ask about that, I'd be happy to fill you in on it. So men and women do not enjoy paid parental leave in our country. Women still don't enjoy equal pay compared to their male counterparts, and make an average of 82 cents to every dollar that men make. Many families still do not have access to affordable, high-quality health care. The Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, which is devastating for women across the country. And it's the first generation where our daughters have fewer rights than their mothers and their grandmothers. So we still have a great deal of work to do. And I think it's a privilege for me to be a part of the Congress. So I think women are still highly underrated, still are, as members of Congress. But that doesn't, I don't allow that to deter me. Women are bring to the public table life experiences that are different from our male counterparts. And to be at the public table to bring more equity, to work on the issues that impact people across our country, I think is really an essential. So thank you for inviting me to be with you today. It's an honor to do so. Bravo to AAUW for all the work you have done and are doing right now and what you've done over the years, because you're bringing young women together and underscoring the need for them to have the knowledge, understand how important experience is, and that we can mentor each other.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Your story is so inspiring. At this point, we would like to open it up for questions from the girls. So please go ahead and raise your digital hand to speak with Rep. Eshoo. Wonderful. Abigail, please go ahead.
Hi. So I was just wondering, I'm learning a lot about committee work right now in my government class, and I was wondering, like, what kind of entails your day-to-day work for various committees you're on? Thank you.
Well, I serve on a very, very powerful committee in the House. It's the oldest committee in Congress, and the title of it is Energy and Commerce, but that hardly begins to describe how broad its jurisdictions are. It has jurisdiction over everything healthcare, the FDA, the CDC, the NIH, everything under Health and Human Services. It has jurisdiction over interstate commerce. So I could go on and on about how powerful it is. And then it's up to me to make use of those powers on behalf of my constituents and to correct, where we may have failures or shortcomings. This last week, for example, we had a hearing with the NIH, with CDC, and with the FDA. And I questioned the heads of those agencies about where we had shortcomings as COVID descended upon us. One example were all of the, protective equipment that healthcare workers need. I remember nurses wrapping plastic garbage bags around themselves to protect themselves, masks that were faulty. Why was that the case? What was in our national stockpile? Why has after Congress approved close to $1 billion for research for long COVID, which so many people in the country are still suffering from, why are we not closer to an answer for that? So that's a snapshot of the hearing that we had this week. And the other subcommittee that I serve on is telecommunications and technology. So I'm pursuing a national law on privacy. So we deal with broadband. Many of the there are many areas of my congressional district. It is Silicon Valley, but there are parts of Silicon Valley where my constituents don't have access to broadband. So I would say that my hands are full, but I think it's really a privilege to serve on Energy and Commerce. It's a difficult committee to be seated at. There are many that pursue it, and there are a few that are chosen.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next question is from Julia Dang.
Hi, my name is Julia Dang. I am from your congressional district. I would just like to thank you for representing us. What do you think was your proudest achievement? What do you think? What work are you most proud of doing as a congresswoman?
Well, it's a thank you, Julia. It's there are many bills of mine that have been signed into law under every president that I served. I would say I think the Affordable Care Act, because that's tens of millions of Americans that now have full access to health care, which is such a blessing. No one really can afford to be without full access to health care. So there are many other bills that I really am very proud of. I always say to my constituents that every word we write, those words walk into people's lives. I have done legislation relative to breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, ALS. I mean, the list goes on and on. So, and it's very difficult for members to have a bill become law. There are between 20 and 25,000 bills that are introduced in a 2-year session of Congress. There are about 200 or less that become law, including the budget. So it's a very big deal to have your legislation become law. But I would say the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, there are many that ran for president, both Republicans and, but mostly Democrats, that they pledged to create national health care. But it didn't happen over the last almost 100 years until it came to the Obama administration. So it was a big, big thing to get this over the line.
Thank you so much. That was.
Sure, thank you. I'm so glad that you're from my district. Where do you live?
I'm from Los Gatos.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Any way I can help you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Juliana. How about Elena?
Hello, Congresswoman. My name is Elena, and I would like to ask you, what do you consider to be the most pressing issues facing women today? And how do you plan to address them in your role as Congresswoman?
It's all about equity. It's all about equity. And I think the challenge is even greater for minorities, for women of color. So everything that I do where I have a responsibility at my committee, but also helping other members of Congress by supporting their legislation as well, on every single issue, I work to integrate that issue. Constituents have asked me, well, how do we do this? I said, it's one issue at a time. If you have any kind of responsibility to improve healthcare, then it has to be through that lens. And let me give you an example. I just in this last, at the end of this last Congress, it was my legislation that became law where we would have equity in clinical trials. Now, what does that mean? Well, we didn't have any minorities. It's the first time that there is a law that minorities have to be included. And so I would say equity across the board, whether it's what a woman earns, what a woman has, women and girls have access to, they've been left out. When I was first elected, women were not even included in any clinical trials. And it seems like almost a silly notion that ever was in place, but it was. And it took the handful of women at that time in the Congress to raise hell about it. How do you do the right kind of research on breast cancer if you don't have any women in the trial? So I think equity for girls and for women.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman.
Thank you, Elena. Let's see, Victoria Chow. Please ask your question.
Hi. I was wondering, I've personally served on my city council's youth council, and I wanted to know how you first started your way, working up and different positions and roles, and how you got to serving Congress today. And I was also hoping to hear your perspective on sort of the recent media of the State of the Union meeting on, I think, the 7th.
The 7th, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your question. I loved doing things in the community. And so I volunteered a great deal. When my children were young and then in school, so I volunteered with other young mothers at my children's school. I was a member of the League of Women Voters and engaged in some special projects that they took on in the community. I served on a community board that worked with minority women, and it was a great project, and it was all about nutritious foods, not only for their families, but for themselves, but also for small children. So, I was a registered Democrat, but I did work with the Democratic Party. I volunteered in local campaigns. It was fun. It was interesting. And as I said earlier in my opening comments, all of these experiences you learn from. Anything that you can learn, there are those that decide that they want to run for office. Wonderful. That's wonderful. But tell me what I always ask the aspirant, tell me what you've done in the community so that you can, if you want to run for office, what have you learned? What do you know about different parts of the community? That's very, very important. Most frankly, if you don't have kind of a great curiosity and an interest in your local community, why would you ever serve to be elected to serve it? I think that those experiences are enriching. So, bravo to you for doing that. As far as the State of the Union, it's a very special evening when the president is invited by the Congress to come and report on the state of our union. And it is the only time when all three branches of government are represented there. The legislative, which is the Congress, the executive, which is the President of the United States, as well as the Vice President, as well as the President's cabinet, and the judicial branch. So there's representation from the Supreme Court. They are in the chamber as well. And I thought the president was terrific. I really do. I kind of like the way he rope-a-doped the Republicans on Social Security and Medicare. It was quite an exchange. I think that he could report of enormous progress because we put into place very big laws. They're far-reaching on infrastructure, on COVID, and he could declare that the emergency status of COVID has ended. What if 2 years? I mean, when I look over my shoulder of his first year and then the year that was just that just ended, 2022, the Congress really has produced highly effective, highly important policies for the people of our country. And I liked that he emphasized building on those achievements and that we need to work together on a bipartisan basis on behalf of the people of our country. I thought, and I couldn't help but think of my beautiful mother who's in heaven watching all of this. She used to say, Anna, people say more about themselves than anyone else can ever say about them. And so I think some of my Republican colleagues, they disgraced themselves the way they demonstrated a lack of respect and shouting out. But that's a statement about them. And we need to just keep building on the progress that we've made. The people of our country deserve that. And I'm always mindful that when we succeed in the United States, we can succeed for human beings around the world. No other country produced the most highly effective vaccine to prevent and to protect people in this horrible pandemic that was visited upon the entire world. So when we lead, we can bring positive change in people's lives across the globe. Thank you for asking about the State of the Union. And I was so proud to you have one ticket for a guest. I invited the director of a very important nonprofit in Half Moon Bay that serves farm workers, Belinda Arriaga, Dr. Arriaga. And, we had a mass shooting in my district. The community has been traumatized. And I thought that she deserved that ticket to underscore and to highlight. As the president said, there are some people that feel that they've never been noticed. And that's the case with farm workers. So I think it was very special for me to have her as my special guest.
We have one more question from Sierra Fong.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Representative Eshoo. I wanted to ask you, as a woman in a male-dominated field, how did you learn how to assert your voice in spaces where your voice wasn't necessarily as wanted or valued by male counterparts?
It's tough to do. It's tough to do. It really is. What I found was the most important kind of proof in the pudding in terms of the importance of my voice on behalf of my constituents was to be effective, to know the policy inside and out, and to build a coalition of stakeholders so that the policy would really take hold. So I think that's still tough to do. Honestly, I think that's still tough to do. And, but, you know, being prepared, knowing, as I said, the issue inside and out, and building the support of stakeholders. So, so that, you know, these members that are doubters or think you are less than they are, you prove them wrong.
Thank you so much.
And to help elect more women. To help, we always need more women in at the public table. We bring something else. I remember when I was running, I was at the Kiwanis Club or the Rotary Club. At that time, they were all men in the clubs. And after I gave my remarks as a candidate, first question from the back of the room, this man said, "Do you think you're better because you're a woman?" And I said, "No, I don't think I'm better because I'm female, but my life experiences are different as a woman. I've raised children. I see what the shortcomings are for so many children in our country, their education, their healthcare. So my experiences as a woman are different than yours, and I believe those experiences need to be addressed at the public table." And you know, they were quiet for a couple of seconds, but then they clapped. They clapped. So it's not to throw something in a man's face, but to point out how our experiences, how different they are, just as it is for minority women. I don't have that experience because I'm not, referenced as a minority. But all of those experiences really say something, and because they're lived experiences. They're not something that's made up. You've lived it. You know it. That has to be taken into consideration when policies are written. No one should be left out.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Eshoo, for choosing to join GovTrek today, despite the other commitments you have in your community and across the nation.
Thank you, Shauna. And I wish all the young women absolutely my best. This is not a mystery. We have experience under our belt, and any way that I can help share that experience and help advance you in your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations. I keep doing it, and I'm committed to it. And any way I can help any of you, just let me know. Thank you. And thank you to AAUW. Bravo to this magnificent organization.
Thank you again. AAUW California would like to thank our distinguished speakers for this opportunity to have a real conversation on the progress and work to be done to close the gender leadership gap. We appreciate your commitment to elevating this next generation of women leaders and would love to invite all of our speakers back to attend the GovTrek finale and campaign competition. It's scheduled for March 25th, if your schedules permit. Thank you again for joining us today. We appreciate your time. So GovTrek participants, amazing speakers, right? I'm so inspired, so inspired. We are running a little bit late today, but I think it was well worth it to listen to these trailblazing leaders speak directly to us. I mean, that was so exciting and so inspiring. I hope you feel the same. So before we go into our breakout room activities today, I'd like to review the expectations of your campaign simulation competition. We've sent you documents to review, but I would like to take this time just to verbally go over the assignment that you have and a few other items. Like, for example, we've created new teams. New teams have been formed and your campaign roles have been announced. If you did not read the message or click on the link to see what your campaign role is, you can find that in the chat. I believe we're going to be putting those links in the chat here, and you can take a look. The password on that document is AAUW California, all one word, lowercase, AAUW California. And what we're going to be doing today, thanks, Julika. What we're going to be doing today in your breakout room activity is you'll have 30 minutes to work as a team to define your campaign strategy and your messaging. I think this is going to be fun for everybody. Julika, I think it's AAUWCA, the password, unless it was changed. I used AAUWCA. Sorry if I misspoke. Perfect. Thanks, Tomasa. So as a team, you'll define your campaign strategy. Let's walk through the student materials so you have a better understanding. Sandy, if we can go to the political campaign project description document. And this is how you get there. Thank you for the tutorial too. So you go to our website, go to our programs, go to student material, and then select the political campaign project description. And this will be your document that you want to go to every time we go into a breakout room. So remember this political campaign project description. What it does is gives you an overview and a step-by-step guide for what you're expected to work on over the next few Saturdays and outside of the classroom if you choose to. We do encourage you to work outside of the classroom to complete your final project, but it is not required. When you go into your breakout room, the chat will be enabled, so be sure to share your contact information with your fellow students. So let's look at this document a little closer. Each task is broken down by the role, your campaign role, except for today, where you'll see in the first section there where it says define your campaign strategy and messaging. This is going to be done as a team, not one or two of your team members, but the whole team. This is where you are going to define your campaign strategy, your messaging by following along those bulleted items. So you'll decide things like what your target voter demographics are. You'll be asked to choose one or more voter demographics, including young voters, Hispanic, elderly, veterans, low income, and then you'll decide what position your candidate will run for, what you stand for, what your platform is, one or two core issues that you're addressing, and more. As you can see, it's all listed there for you. So what you need to do as a team is make a decision on these components of your campaign strategy. And a quick tip to help you decide what position your candidate will run for. If we can scroll down, thank you. You'll choose from one of these narratives below. So we have it all mapped out for you. I know it might seem a little intimidating, but we've mapped out the journey for you, if you will. So all you have to do is choose between running your candidate. Will they be running for elected office in local government, or will they be running for office, running for a congressional seat in federal government? Those are your choices. You also, if it's federal, you could run for a House seat, and if let's see, or a Senate seat. So a House seat or a Senate seat. And there's a few more details that kind of gives you the framework for your narrative, for your scenario. So it's as easy as that. Choose what your candidate will run for, and then answer all of the questions that are bulleted above. I mean, that's all you need to work on today. That's all you need to focus on. Next week, we'll dive deeper into building out your political campaign package, which is your final project. So if we can scroll down to the bottom, let's discuss that, what that looks like. This is your final project, which is due on March 18th at 11:59 p.m. You'll be expected to produce as a team or as an individual, or the individual on your team that has these skills. You will be expected to produce a 5.5 to 6.5 minute video that incorporates the following elements: your candidate's stump speech, number one, which will be up to 3 minutes. Number two would be an overview of your voter outreach plan with a visual and verbal description. And number three, an overview of your candidate flyer and your campaign ad, also with a visual and verbal description. So just to summarize that, there's three components, and you'll be putting those together in a 5.5 to 6.5 minute video. We have a tutorial for you that Tomasa, who is our AAUW intern. She's a poli-sci college student right now, and she's also a facilitator for one of the teams. You're really lucky to have her because she is very technically savvy and has created this tutorial for you that shows you how to use a tool called Canva and how to incorporate the three elements of your project that we just talked about into a video. It's not as hard as it sounds, and we hope that some of the girls on the call have experience with this design tool called Canva. If not, Tomasa can help you. So your video submission is what will be evaluated by judges in the preliminary competition round. 8 final teams will be then selected to compete in the state finals, which is pretty exciting. I mean, you're competing on a state level, and you will be invited to come to the March 25th GovTrek finale and competition, and your videos will be played for a panel of VIP judges, and then they'll be asking you questions. So there'll be a live Q&A, kind of like we did today with the legislators. You'll be doing that with our judges. And after the judges ask those questions and view your campaign packages, your video, they will deliberate, and they'll come back and they'll award the prizes. So the next thing that I just want to review quickly is the campaign simulation competition document. And in that we can talk about some your requirements for this final political campaign video and your the award categories. So let's see. Yeah, so you've seen this. This defines the different roles that are assigned within each campaign team. And then if you can scroll down a little bit, please, we can look at, here's some more requirements for your video. Again, it outlines the 3 components: your stump speech, your voter outreach plan, and then your political candidate flyer and campaign ad. And these are simple components. We're not asking you, we're not asking you for anything complicated here. If there are questions, we're here to help you. And again, look at the tutorial that Tomasa has created for you, because it'll visually show you how simple this really is. I just don't want you to feel too overwhelmed here, girls. Let's see. So if you scroll down a little bit more, we're talking about the prize categories. So just so you know, everyone on the call, everyone who's participating will receive a certificate of completion from GovTrek. All teams that make it to the state finals will receive a book called The Empowered Citizens Guide, 10 Steps to Passing a Law That Matters to You. The grand prize, additional awards will be provided in the following categories. And I think the most important prize here is the best campaign overall. That's our grand prize team that gets selected. And the members of that team will have an opportunity to participate in a local internship. And I mean local to your area. So because we don't know who's going to win yet, we don't have those internships to tell you about at this time. But again, once we find out the winners, once we name the winners, we will be busy finding you a local internship in public policy or law or nonprofit, etc. So it's really exciting for us to announce that's what you're competing for, girls. And for the rest of the categories, because we're running late, I'm not going to go into the details here of the prizes, but for each of the remaining categories, they're for individual contributors, not for the whole team. So judges will be looking for the best voter outreach plan, the best candidate flyer and campaign ad, the best speech, the best political messaging. And then finally, we'll have a poll, a People's Choice Award, by the audience at our GovTrek finale. The audience will choose their favorite campaign decided by them. So it's going to be a fun day, and this is what we're all leading up to. So I hope that this has given you a good overview. Does anyone have any questions before we go into our breakout rooms? Not sure.
Shauna, there are a couple of questions about timing.
Okay.
Some of the students expected this to be done at noon and need to leave at noon.
Okay.
And so I have suggested that they join their breakout room briefly so that they can exchange contact information. But it would be helpful, I think, if we could move on to the breakout room so that we can get folks in there.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. Okay. So before we do that, I just want to remind you that this is your time to do your strategy, not anything else. And be sure to exchange the contact information like Sandy just said.
Okay, so there are also questions about where their campaign roles were defined. This was in the reminder that you got for the session. Let me just briefly show you on the website. It's under session 2 and room assignments and team roles. You will be automatically assigned to a room. We are aware that there are some rooms that do not have as many girls as we anticipated because they were not able to join today. So we will be doing some shuffling of the rooms momentarily. When you get into the room, you're going to be placed in one of 10 breakout rooms. If your room has less than four students in your room, please return to the main room and we will reassign you. We're probably going to combine a couple of rooms together. You'll have 30 minutes to work on your assignment. The room will close in 30 minutes. You'll get a notice 30 seconds before that the room is going to close. And when you go to leave the breakout room, there's a button that says leave breakout room. Try not to click on the leave meeting button, which is very tempting because it's the top button. Choose the leave breakout room, you'll go back to the main room. And then up in the corner is what your timing looks like. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn the breakout rooms on, and then we'll be having some folks come back to join us.
There was some really, I thought, good discussion, but it really wasn't enough time. Our next session We'll be
So
focused.
Maylee, can we hold that because we still have students on? So we'll keep the facilitators on after the session if you're able to.
Sure.
I don't know if all the students came back. It looks like many left. So Shauna, you have an announcement about Lobby Day, which will looks like it's not going to reach everybody. But do you want to go ahead and do that and wrap up the session, and then we can have a discussion with the facilitators about how the breakout rooms worked when
Sure.
everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want me to do that, Sean?
Yep.
Sure.
Can I give you a formal introduction, Kathy?
Sure.
Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a fun campaign strategy session. Before we close the day, I would like to introduce you to AAUW California's Public Policy Director and inventor of GovTrek, Kathy Harper. Kathy Harper has spent 25 years as a prosecutor in the Orange County District Attorney's Office, 4 years as an adjunct law professor, and has argued twice before the California Supreme Court, and spent 10 years as CEO of Doves, a domestic violence shelter program in Big Bear. Kathy has achieved her BA in Poli-Sci from Cal State Long Beach and her JD from Southwestern University School of Law. Let's welcome Kathy Harper.
Thank you so much, Shauna. I'm just going to be real quick. The reason Shauna gave me an opportunity to speak to you before we close is that I have a really exciting opportunity to announce for you young ladies. As a public policy director, I'm the chair of a committee, and every year our committee does what we call Lobby Day or Lobby Days. And it's 1 or 2 days where we get in contact with all of our state legislators, and we talk to them about our 3 top bills that we're sponsoring for the year. We have a legislative agenda. We have about 35 bills that we work on throughout the year that we try to get our legislator to pass on behalf of our mission and our public policy priorities. So we pick 3 of those from our legislative agenda, our top priority bills, and we go to the legislature and advocate. This year, our 2 lobby days are going to be on March 21st and 22nd. They are all-day events. Some of our members will go and visit their legislators in Sacramento. Some will visit their staff in their field offices. That means in the city where their field office is. And most of them will do it by Zoom. So this year, I'm really excited to announce that we would like to invite all of our GovTrek participants to join us in our advocacy venture on Lobby Days. So the way we work is we break up into teams of 4, and 4 of our AUW members are assigned to a team who will go and visit their representative in their district. So if you're interested in joining into this project, this will give you an opportunity for some real life hands-on experience in the legislature, in the California State Legislature, and with the whole act of advancing policy. That's what government service is all about. It's all about policy. So if you're interested in this, you will be getting, everyone will be getting an email, be coming out sometime this afternoon. I want to alert you, be sure to check your email box for that message. It'll be coming from Sandy at AUW California, and it will give you all the details about how to sign up. If you're interested, there's a link that will take you to a survey that you will be asked to fill out. And I just want to mention 2 things on that survey I want to bring to your attention. One is that there's a drop down that is labeled something like branch position. What is your position in your branch? I want you to go ahead and click on that, even though you don't have anything to do with the branch, but you need to click on that, and then you'll have a drop down on that button, and at the very bottom it will say student. So I want you to go to branch position, click on it, go down to student, and click on that, and that will enroll you as a student. The second thing is we will ask who is your state assembly member for your district and who is your state senator for your district. This is really important. It's a good exercise for you because you'll have to look it up. You probably don't know. And there's a link on the email that will tell you how to find that information. So, oh great, thanks Sandy. She's showing you on the screen here what I'm talking about. So make sure that you click on that link for how to find your your assembly person and your state senator to make sure that you put that information in as well. And then the third thing is that we will ask you to attend a mandatory training session on the evening. It's a Monday evening before the 2 lobby days, which is March 20th at 7 o'clock. And you need to register separately. As Sandy's showing here, there's 2 different buttons. You have to click the black one to fill in the survey to let us know you want to participate. And then you have to click the orange one to register for the mandatory training. That's to make sure that you get the link, the Zoom link for the training. If you haven't clicked on that, you won't get the Zoom link. And that training will tell you everything you need to know about how to do the lobbying work, what our bills are. We'll educate you on what our top 3 bills are. So anyway, you'll be getting all that information this afternoon. I really hope you all take advantage of this great opportunity to actually participate and get this firsthand information. And hopefully we'll see you in March. Thanks. Oh, and Shauna, did you still want me to say the wrap up?
Sure. Thanks.
Oh. And Shauna's asked me to remind you all that when you click out, would you please complete the end of session poll as you exit? Thanks.
Thanks, Kathy.
All right, my pleasure.
We'll see everyone in 2 weeks. Great work today.
Thank you, everyone.